Hi, I'm Belkin, and this is the beginning of my online course in modern harmony. Okay, why this course in the first place? Well, there are several different reasons. One of them is to connect traditional harmony with modern harmony. It's not always the case that everything that's new has no roots in the past. It's important to know where they come from and to see how they connect with that. So that's one reason. Another reason is I want to give you harmonic ideas which will open up new expressive possibilities in your own music, make you able to express things you weren't able to handle before. Another aspect of this course is I want to give you useful ways of thinking about harmony, ways to approach any situation involving harmony, knowing what to listen for and how to approach it. Finally, some of you at least are going to want to try and find your own distinctive style and voice, and that in part means your own distinctive style of harmony. So that's the last goal of the course. How will it work? Well, there are 2 or 3 basic things to know. There will be examples and exercises in each lesson. The examples, you will see them on the screen and you will hear them in the audio. Contributors to the course also get a PDF document containing the examples and the exercises. Once the whole course has been recorded, all 10 lessons that are planned, then I'll make those PDF documents available to everybody. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual stuff we're going to deal with in the course. First thing is a few constraints. One of them is pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about harmony within the tempered scale. We could talk about harmony with microtonality and so on, but that would make the course about 10 times longer, and it's also not an area that I have much expertise in. And in any case, there's so much to discuss even using the tempered scale that we won't be running out of things to talk about. Second constraint, this is not an analysis course. The goal of the course is not to give you a way of labeling everything you hear, but to give you real control of it as a composer. As you write, how do you deal with harmony? Which note do you add or take away to get the effect you want? The last constraint is going to sound silly, but it isn't silly in context. I'm going to say harmony has to make audible sense. There are an awful lot of systems that have been invented in the past 100 years or so for creating harmony which don't have much to do with anything anybody can hear. Those will not be the subject of this course. We're interested in harmony, really, that's anything that's audible. So I will not be discussing anything much that isn't actually audible. Next thing would be prerequisites. What do you need to know to take this course? Well, the first thing would be you need to be at least somewhat at ease with musical notation. If you can't read treble and bass clef, you're going to have some problems here. Second thing is ideally you should have probably at least a semester's worth of tonal harmony. You don't have to be an expert, but you should be able to do basic part writing and know basic cadences and basic simple voice leading in tonal harmony. That's really the most important part of what you need to take the course. Now, there are some general principles of harmony, but I've already covered those in another short video on YouTube, which is called General Principles of Modern Harmony. So I'm just going to recapitulate them very quickly here, but I'd suggest you look at that video to hear the examples and get the detailed discussion of these general principles. So you'll find the link for that video underneath this one. Okay, so what are those basic principles? There are 5 of them, okay, and again, I just summarized them here. The first one is any kind of harmony needs to have the ability to make a cadence. It needs punctuation. Second principle, any kind of harmony needs some kind of way to create direction and attraction between notes. Notes are not a democracy. Notes are not all equal. Their feelings are not hurt if you emphasize one more than another one. So it's really important to know that the music is much more interesting if we feel the music that it's going somewhere than if it's just wandering around without any direction. Third item, voice leading. Voice leading counts a lot because it's really the details of how we get to each note in a chord that'll make the difference of whether it sounds random or whether it sounds like it belongs where it is. Fourth, every kind of harmony needs to have some kind of variety of texture. That means it can't be equally dense all the time. Some chords have to sound more relaxed than others. Another way to say this might be it needs to breathe. And the last general principle is that any kind of harmony probably will have some sense of harmonic zones, in tonal harmony what we call modulation, but some sense that not everywhere is equal, that we are more in one place than another one. Okay, now just quickly I want to talk about some of the existing books on these subjects, just to say a few words about each one. The first, and by far the best, is Persichetti's 20th Century Harmony. It was published in the 1960s and it remains an excellent text. It's very comprehensive, and most important, it was written by a man who was a very good composer himself and a very experienced teacher. So it approaches the subject from the point of view of a composer and a teacher. It has lots of references to the repertoire, lots of excellent exercises, and many good explanations. The second book is by Ludmila Luleila. It's called Contemporary Harmony. Like Persichetti, she was a composer, and it generally covers a lot of the same material, but the coverage is not as well organized as Persichetti, but it's still a useful book. Third, Hansen, Harmonic Materials of Modern Music. Hansen's book is kind of strange. I can't say I really recommend it. He approaches everything from the point of view of scales and modes, which in some cases works very well, but not in others. Also, his terminology is a bit strange, and a lot of people have had trouble with it. The fourth book is a much more recent one. It's by Tomoshko, and it's called A Geometry of Music. Tomoshko takes a mathematical approach to tonality and voice leading, but it's convincing. And one thing about it that's unusual is, unlike almost all the other books about modern harmony, the emphasis on voice leading is very relevant to a composer. Because again, harmony is not about one chord. Harmony is about how you get to a chord and how you leave it and how it works in context. So Tomoshko's ideas about voice leading are very, very relevant to that. A very good book. If you speak French, you might want to look into Koechlin, Traité de l'Harmonie. It's a 3-volume set. The volume you're interested in is the second volume, which has lots of examples of harmony from 20th century music with interesting discussions. Finally, the last book is a bit of a special case. It's by the composer Olivier Messiaen, and it's called Technique de mon langage musical. The most important word in that title is mon, technique of my musical language. It's idiosyncratic, it's sometimes rather strange, it also has some good ideas, but it's only about his own music and nobody else's. However, it has some interesting stuff. Okay, the last thing we need to discuss before we go on into the actual lessons themselves is just the course plan. How are we going to deal with it? Before I say that, I wanted to specify one thing, which is that unlike, let's say, a traditional tonal harmony course, this course is modular. In other words, you don't necessarily have to watch all the episodes in order. A tonal harmony course, you can't go to week 5 without having passed through week 3 and 4. In this course, however, you can. If you're only interested in writing with clusters, you don't really need to look at the stuff about harmony in fourths and so on. So keep in mind that each lesson can be looked at independently. However, they all require that you look at the general principles video I mentioned earlier, because those principles come back all the time. Okay, so just before going through the detailed course plan, I just want to say something about the general overall organization of the course. The first several lessons will be about extensions of traditional harmony. The second group of lessons will be about new approaches. Finally, at the very end, we'll have one lesson on how to combine different kinds of harmony in the same piece. Okay, so here's the list of what we're going to cover in the course. Okay, the first lesson, is going to be about outgrowths of traditional voice leading. I call it linear harmony. The second lesson is going to be about modes and scales, with some discussion about tonality and extended tonality. The third lesson is about added note chords. You see a lot of those in jazz. The fourth lesson is about chords that are piled up in thirds, 11th chord, 13th chords, and so on. The fifth lesson is going to be about polyharmony and polytonality and polymodality. That will bring us to the end of the parts that come out of traditional harmony. Then in the new approaches, we're going to have a lesson about intervals and specific ways of using intervals to compose harmony. Then another lesson on intervallic harmony, mostly about harmony with fourths and fifths. Then another lesson on intervallic harmony about seconds and sevenths. A lesson about cells, series, and various other harmonic systems. And finally, the last lesson will discuss combining all these different kinds of harmony inside one piece. In a word, the last lesson is about transitions between different kinds of harmony. Now we're ready to start our first lesson, so I'll see you in a minute.